Can you hear me? Can you just make a thumb up if you can hear me? You can hear me very well. Good. We have 4 people on the stream and 3 people in the room. Christian, Therese, and Ulla is here. And on the stream, we have Cecilia, Liv, Anders, and Annika. So you know who's in the room, the ones of you who know each other. You can start by finding a comfortable position. Close your eyes. And just start by seeing what is here. What is in this moment? Just complete awareness of what is happening in this now. If there's a lot of thinking, that's not a problem. You just notice. And whatever your current state is, just sense it, just allow it. Allow it to be felt, experienced. And see if you can stay here. Just completely attentive of this moment. And I know that it's easy to feel concentrated and maybe a bit tense when you're going to be alert. But notice that you can also relax in this alertness. That there can be deep awareness, deep attentiveness, and still a relaxation. No need to trying to make the mind quiet or anything like that. Just allow everything to come. If the mind is busy, it's all right. If you're emotional, or that there's a prominent emotion in your experience, it's fine. Just be with what is. Whatever happens in your experience, notice that there is a stillness behind all of it. Every thought, every expression in the body arises, stays for a while, and goes. You just stay here. Whatever thoughts arise, notice that they arise in this moment. And again, fall back into this moment. This is the nature of every phenomenon, of everything that arises in your consciousness. It has these qualities of impermanence. Even the thought of I, even the idea of yourself as a separate thing, arise, stay for a while, and go. And notice that you can experience the movement of thoughts. That the thought, however important you might think it is just another phenomena coming, staying for a while, and going. And by observing this, it reveals something about you. That sense you can experience thoughts, emotional content, bodily sensations. You have to be prior to them. If the mind starts to go quiet, if there is spaciousness, there's no need to try to deepen that spaciousness. Just be here. Just allow this moment to unfold. If you experience quiet, it might feel disorienting, perhaps even overwhelming. That is normal. Just stay. Be comfortable. Invite everything. Everything that comes in this moment, invite it into this moment. Nothing needs to happen. No need to force yourself further. Just stay with what is. If you get lost in thoughts, see to it that you come back. Come back to being aware of this moment. And know that it is a very open instruction. But this instruction leads you to the core of what is. The coreless core. You can open your eyes, move your body if you need to. Meditation is not an action. think that is the first thing to know about meditation. Because many people think that they take up meditation as they take up a Pilates class or go and learn chess. But meditation is different because there is some theory and some things to find logical in it, which is good. But at its core, it's just an exploration of what this is. And that this exploration is not different in this experience or in that experience. We might not put the same words on things. We might refer to them differently. We might call the stillness, life, the present moment. If you have a religious background, you might call it God. But these words are secondary. Because the nature of it is to explore. And usually when we explore different subjects, we think with our analytical mind. We do a philosophical or intellectual exercise. And that's how we explore. And some of that is applicable in meditation. You could ask yourself the profound questions. What is happiness? What is this experience? All those things are good to contemplate on. But at its core, it has to be experienced. You have to look. And when you sit, you might sometimes experience that it's difficult to just sit. Maybe because your physical body feels uncomfortable, but also the mind is restless, jumps from thing to thing. And this restlessness springs from the egoic mind. The idea that you are a separate person. The idea that you are a concept. And that you are relating and upholding your world. I know that these kind of concepts can be daunting, can feel very big to take in. But there's no requirement for you to believe me. I would much rather that you experience. If you find what I say logical and interesting, notice. See if there is truth to what I say. That's all I ask. And the beauty of meditation is that you can find out. It doesn't have to stop for being a nice belief, nice words that you can hold on to when it's stormy. But you start to notice that there is a deep stillness in your experience. There is something that is unshakable, even though your world can seem upside down. What is it in the experience that makes you being able to determine that things are coming and going. There is a permanent element to the experience. Meditation is usually referred to as awareness, the stillness, whatever you want to call it. It's not a thing. It's not a phenomenon like all the things that we experience are. But it's still there, and it shows itself by giving the sense I. But this I is usually identified and put onto an idea of your personality, of your body, a set of thoughts. But that is just something that is borrowed. That is just identity in the moment. That is identity that needs to be upheld. That is identity that needs to be believed in time and time again. But most of us are so used to going to this source of identity that we just repeat those patterns. Every time the mind says, this is happening to me, this is mine, whatever it refers to as yourself. When you believe and you buy into that, you uphold. It feels safe, it feels normal, it feels like you're in the space of recognition, that you recognize and you feel safe in, even though you can feel like the egoic mind is hurting you in ways, and that you're destructive in it, or that it's quite painful, but it still feels like home. And for many people, it feels more scary to go to somewhere outside of that control, outside of that sense of control. I'm just telling you this because I don't want to sugarcoat meditation. I don't want to make it into something that it's not. I know it's popular with images of people who are happy on the beach, sitting, meditating in white clothes. But what is the practice? What is it that we call sadhana? What is that? That is to be very honest, to be very sincere with yourself, to sit with yourself, to allow whatever is expressed to be felt, to allow thinking to happen, and start to understand that it can all be observed. And it doesn't make you detached or passive. It just makes you not running with your experience all the time. Because when you're identified with it, you think that every thought is so important, or many of them, and that they tell a profound truth about your state. The thought comes, today is a bad day. And you think that you see things in your experience that day that points to that this is a really crappy day. And you buy into it, and now you're a victim of that crappy day. But what most people don't see is when there is a good day, you do exactly the same. You have the exact same principles, but that day you feel excited about the day, and you're so happy that it's a really good day today. But that coin is always two-sided. If you buy into your identity and you get excited about the day, you will also experience the bad day. And this is the play of pleasure and pain. This is the play of good and bad. And this is the game of the egoic mind. But all of those things are just experiences happening. They don't need identity to them. It's not automatic. It must be upheld. And this is a key part in meditation, to look of what is natural and what needs to be upheld. What happens in relaxation and what all the time needs attention to be kept up. And many people come from that their mind feels very fragmented and they try to bring in some control. So they do some exercises, they get interested in personal development, and they start to develop strategies in their life to cope with their mind. But these strategies take a lot of energy because they need to be upheld. And when they cannot be upheld because of something, it's also very, very difficult. But all these strategies are made to protect the idea of the self. The idea that you are separate and that you need protection. That you are something that needs to be fixed. You need healing, whatever it is. All these ideas. But at the fundamental level, everything just happens. That is just expressions of the body, it happens, but you are not that. This is what we investigate. And the level of this investigation, as I said before, is not mainly on the surface level. It's not mainly an intellectual investigation. It is mainly an investigation in experience to see what the experience is. And it starts simple. Excuse me. It starts by see if you can be able to watch your mind. See if you can see that thoughts arise, stay for a while and go. And for many people, just the sheer concentration that is needed to watch one thought come, stay for a while and go, they're already lost in something around that thought. They're already lost in the content. So the start of meditation is often that thoughts arise. At some point, you identify a little bit with them and go with them, and you have to break that pattern and again come to being aware of thinking. And there is nothing, people think that the state of non-identification should be some kind of magical jolt or something very special should happen. But all that is that you are aware of your thinking. It's very, very simple instead of drawn into it. And in the beginning, you just need to break this old habit of going with every thought almost. Most people have the habit of going all the time, every thought going with them. And when you break this habit and you start to watch them, it becomes spacious. And also you will move from the feeling that your thoughts is in your face all the time. It feels like they're so identified and so close to that they come. Oh, and it feels like there's some distance to it. This can only come from breaking that pattern. But this is step one in meditation. That is the first thing. That's why concentration is so important, so that you time and time again can go back to being aware of the thoughts. And if you find it too difficult, then use an object of concentration. You can do a mantra meditation. Many people like that. You can watch your breath or just physical sensations of the body. Some people watch their heartbeat, whatever you like. The object of that is not so important. But coming back to being aware of the thoughts time and time again, that is what you want to start with, because it just breaks the very stiffness of the egoic mind and this constant train of thoughts that many people experience. And if you practice this, there will become space. And you will be more aware of the space between your thoughts. And and at some point, it will become pleasurable. It will become um, a very peaceful experience of these spaces. But many people say, okay, but it gets quiet, but there is nothing nice about it. But at some point, it will come. When it deepens, it will naturally come. And when you practice that and you get comfortable with it, there is a sense of space then. The mind starts to quiet down a little bit. It can be peaceful. And what is very common in that is that there is this is sort of a honeymoon phase where you feel very peaceful in your practice and you experience more space between thoughts than perhaps you ever have in your life. But then your old tendencies tend to surface. Old fears, old patterns, and they won't come in a nice way when you sit on your pillow and perfectly so that you can be perfect aware of them. They will usually feel like something is happening in your life. Some shift of energy, some old patterns, some people are coming back into your life, or some kind of disturbance usually. And it's very common in this that people who start to practice meditation say, oh, but I cannot focus now. It's so difficult. There's too much going on, or I'm too overwhelmed. But this is actually the time to really sit with it. Because when those old pattern comes up and they just become, you just become identified with them again and do whatever you did last time you confronted them, this cycle just continues. But if you sit with it and you allow it and it can be expressed, then the dust can leave. It's like dusting off something old. It just And usually, even if you lose your way, you find your way back, because if the longing is there, if the fire has started in you to start to know about yourself and to explore this, even if you take a break, it will come back. And this might happen a few times or many times, that old things comes up and you get used to it, and you might even have the sense that you can perceive that it is coming. Sometimes you just sit in meditation and it's so quiet for such a long time. You just have the feeling, oh, something is gonna rear its head. Something is coming up. And the beauty of just getting used to that, um, that part of it that this can happen, is that the fear around it and the reactions around it will no longer be so big. It will feel much easier to cope with those things. And the trap in that part of the practice is very much that you start to feel like you can watch everything. You start to feel spacious, you start to feel peaceful, but that also starts to feel like you can hold everything on an arm's length away. You don't really want to touch anything. It feels so peaceful that everything is just on the outside a little bit. But in that sense, there is still some duality. There's still a resistance to the experience. So at some point, you have to invite it all again. But these things will happen very naturally, and if you resist, it will always be unbearable at some point. And from my experience with most people, they don't change until it's unbearable. They don't change because they feel a little bit inspired and something is up. They usually change when all their all their strategies and all the ways that they tried do no longer work. And if you investigate, all these things are unavoidable. And I just try to be very transparent with you. Because there are so many ideas of what meditation should do for you. Most people come with some idea. They have anxiety, they have depression, they have some trauma, they have something. Maybe it can be healed through meditation. And and of course that is possible, but that is not the purpose of meditation. The purpose is to know yourself, not to get rid of anything, not to fix you. Because in actuality, you don't need fixing. In the depth of you, there is nothing broken because it can never be. It's just the idea of the person that is hurt. That is identity. And that person is not whole and needs something to be completed. Come to a certain place, take part of a certain teaching, find a partner, find their place in the world, whatever it is. And it stems from the idea that you are separate. That is the great suffering of feeling separate, is to have the sense of not being satisfied, that something is lacking. And it seems to be very individual how you project that. That sense can be projected on all kinds of things, all kinds of people around you, circumstances. And people get dependent of it because they say it's their driving force. And they have the feeling that all positive things come from this feeling of not feeling satisfied. They're scared of feeling complete. They get scared of the light because they might lose their drive. And perhaps they will. So, how much do you want to know? Is the question. And how comfortable are you when you start to confront your own light? People think that they just want to get rid of their darkness, but most people don't see what will happen when there is light in you and what that light does. If happiness means losing some of your abilities, some of the things that you value highly about yourself, would you give them up? These are very good questions. Because contentment is not to live a perfect life and to have more or the right things. It is to accept this moment fully as it is. And to many people, that can sound like a nice idea. But if you investigate what that entails, at some point it scares most people. Because it's much more profound than you first think. Because you have your idea of how your happiness is. So many ideas of how happiness can be. It can be confused with excitement. You think that the moments you're excited is when you're happy. But that is just longing for the future. That is just the idea of a potential better future. So when you come across contentment, you might at first think, boring. There's no drama in contentment. There's no ups and downs. There's just deep, profound peace. So the question is, are you ready? Can you stay with it? And do you really want to know? The first obstacle I encountered when I started practicing meditation was words. I realized that they meant so much. They meant too much. I thought that the word itself contained something. I didn't understand that it all just points. I thought that the words themselves had some inherent value. And the more you investigate what the experience is, you will notice that it all connects. Because believing in words has a tendencies to create separation, to categorize things, to separate one experience from another. And when the obsession with words have been overcome, they can also be allowed to really point to what they point to. I thought when I was young and reading books about meditation that there were so many ways that meditation was, so many paths, so many ways, and so many different schools. It just felt completely different from me because I read one teacher and he or she was using a certain set of words, and then I read the next teaching and it seemed different somehow. But the more I practiced, the more I noticed that they all said the same thing. But it's confusing if the words are different. So suddenly you start to understand, they point to the same thing. It's just that this teacher has more emphasis on this. And usually that is because of some cultural context, what culture they grew up in, or what kind of background, something like that, that just makes them have this approach. But all serious meditation is always about the same thing. It always comes to the point where you have to question who is the meditator, and to discover that the practice and the practitioner are the same. And concept like that felt so abstract to me. When the first time I remember when I heard that the meditator and meditation is the same, I was like, no, it's not. The meditator is the one who meditates, and meditation is the thing that the meditator does. But as you practice, you notice that these lines get blurred. Because in the beginning, you believe the egoic mind, everything that it upholds, the whole idea of the egoic structure, and you feel so separate, and you really feel like you're the one going to your mat or going to your cushion, sitting and doing the practice. But the more you discover, the more you see that you're not sure that the one who is sitting there is the idea of the practitioner, because that seems to be able to come and go. Can you follow this? Yes, the one who practices is not always there. You have, when you start to experience that the idea of yourself is also a phenomenon that comes and goes, then you will notice that this moment is the only thing that remains in that. If there is deep silence for a long time without the idea of a person, then you start to see, okay, there is still experiencing, there is still this moment, but um, there's no center to it. There's no structure of a person to go back to time and time again. It just is. It's not a reasoning that happens like that. It's just a looking, usually in complete silence, that reveals that. And this is when the line between meditation and the meditator is blurred. Because suddenly, the thing that you're looking for in meditation, the peace and the quiet, you notice that that is you. So there's no difference between you and meditation. It is the same. And one of the greatest obstacles that we have in our sadhana, in our meditation practice, is the idea that we are doing the practice. Because that will just throw you into being very happy when the meditation is going great, because then you feel like a great meditator. And when it's not going so great, it's your fault somehow. And you will just play this game because that is the game of the egoic mind. So then another component is needed. And it's not a component that actually needs to be upheld, even though the mind can interpret it like that at first. And it is to have faith, to trust. To trust that this moment happens as it happens, because that is what's actually happening. But from the egoic mind, that trust is needed, because otherwise the mind just goes to the idea, I am upholding my consciousness. I'm upholding my world. But these things also come when the time is ripe. And if you have a belief that don't allow trusting the moment or having faith, you won't go to that until you really need it. As I said before, most people won't do anything about it until the moment when it feels crucial, then it doesn't work anymore. And I grew up in a very scientific oriented environment, very secular. And I had a great difficulty with everything that relied on faith or trust to something bigger, because I just felt it felt very religious. But at some point, I was starving for it. I understood that this is the only thing that is needed right now. I have done everything, and it still feels very dry and very, very rigid and a lot of effort. There was a lot of worry still. And I met a beautiful teacher that just nudged me a little bit when I was ready and told me that is just lack of faith. And then I understood, okay, this is the component that is missing. And all these things can seem like culturally we look at it as an imposed practice, but faith is actually just allowing what is. It's not a thing that we impose, but culturally it can seem that way. And that's why also words can confuse us. And our cultural context can confuse us because we have the idea that we know what we need and what is natural. So I'm just very transparent with you. And if you in your sadhana, in your practice, come to any of these points, maybe there's something will come that you remembered this story. And it would make it easy for you to just, this is what is needed. Because it's so easy in your practice also to go for long and feel something is missing, but I don't know what it is. Or there is something that has to, some piece of the puzzle that just had to fall into place, but I don't know what it is. And I know that it's so easy to get it confused with the sense of dissatisfaction or all these other ideas that can come from the egoic mind. But there is also a natural existential drive towards and knowing yourself that is in you. And the more you will notice it, the more uh, you will be able to rely on it and understand that this is what is supposed to happen now. And sometimes you won't even understand why that is. It can do the, it can, it can invite you to things. It usually doesn't feel like the simplest path to go, because that is usually a sense of the egoic mind that just wants to go for pleasure. The intuitive sense is always a bit challenging, and it feels right, even though there is something in it that is a bit difficult, usually. And it always um, gives you exactly what you need in this moment if you follow it. And usually not in the way that you think. So it's a beautiful thing, which also involves trust. And when it shows itself, that intuitive sense, that you notice that, and in situations where where everything on the surface seems perfect, and maybe everyone you know would just say yes to these circumstances, and you have a strong no. And you start to go with these things, you will notice that they just move very fluidly, um, and you start to trust, because you notice that it just creates peace, and it doesn't create more actions all the time, continuous action, what we refer to as karma. It stops karma. But as I said, the beauty of this is that you don't have to believe me. Just try it. And also that uh, a common obstacle is that you listen to talks, you come to satsangs or non-dual talks, and you have a sense that that meditation comes from the facilitator of those talks, the speaker, or that it comes from the teaching or something else. But what it all the time relates to, what it all the time mirrors, is that same thing in you. That truth is the same, and it has to be. Otherwise, it is not the truth. And I don't speak about truth in a subjective matter on subject or how to express something, or it is truth in the sense that if this is experienced, then it is my truth, not as a belief. And we're so used to believing um, intellectual knowledge as truth in our culture. We think that there is that this subjective information is going to contain some kind of truth. This is my truth, that is your truth, this kind of talk, you understand? But the experienced truth, even though we would have different cultures or do not speak the same language or be as far as from each other culturally or whatever, that is still the same. Those mechanics are still the same. Trust is still the same. Love is still the same. Relating to thoughts, emotions, if you watch them, it is the same for everyone who don't identify with their thoughts will have the same experience. They will notice that there is spaciousness. You understand? And it feels like I cannot emphasize enough that it's not a system of belief. That there is no point. The only point in believing in it is to experiment and explore it. Because if the belief is just there to create a nice philosophy and you can tell your friends how nice this philosophy of meditation is, then it's just another thought. And the mind can really convince you that you can think this through, that you will come to some conclusion that is thought-based. And the mind will try that up until the point and we cannot anymore, for most people. You get there where you get so frustrated with thinking and the egoic mind. And maybe you already are. Maybe that's why you come to listen to me. You're tired of your mind. Yes, there will be time for bhajan. And if you ever feel any obstacles in your practice, you're so welcome to ask questions. And when you hear about someone's sadhana or someone's practice or have practiced for a long time, it might seem like a very cohesive story that you can follow. But that is never the experience. It's always surprising. Because if you want to know yourself, you have to go into territory where you're not been before. How else is it possible to discover anything? If you just go in your mind in the same motions over and over and over, you will just be locked in those. There's nothing wrong with that. Many people are just locked in their mind, but there is not much freedom in that. And many people suffer that when they don't have to. And many people are also blind to their own tendencies and the egoic mind. When they confront things in the world, they always come, they might always come from the same place. If you're afraid of if you're afraid of conflicts, you're all the time on the lookout if there's a potential conflict. So you all the time have to be on your toes. You all the time have to be ready. These kind of things. And for most people, if you're used to that, you wouldn't say, I'm afraid of conflict. You would just say, this is my behavior. This is normal. So we get blind of our own behavior. And many people either are they live with the hope that it's going to get better, or they live in hopelessness, which is based on the same thing. But it's just that they see that they have an idea and there's no chance of living up to it. Or if they have this feeling, I have a chance to live up to it, it's still just a projection into the future. It's just an identified idea. Hope and hopelessness are friends. They're a pair that goes together. And in every moment, there is the possibility to be with this moment instead of going with all these ideas of the future and the past. And the best way that I know about is to take some time every day for introspection, to look at the one who believes in future and past, and see what it is to be identified with it and what is not, to be free of that identification and what that does. And in the beginning, meditation is hard because the mind is like an overgrown garden. At every turn, there is a thought that is a strategy, or that is a feeling of controlling the moment in some way, or a belief that is being upheld. And it's just a constant struggle with those things. And the beauty is that at some point that makes people exhausted. They burn out, or they get depressed, or it gets too overwhelming. So they say, I have to try something else. And usually they come and see me. That's the reason. So things are not, we think it's so easy to think in terms of good or bad with these things, but also in the crisis and in the um, things that you feel almost breaks you or destroys you, there can be a beauty and a grace of just create a new opening. And even if meditation at first is quite difficult, I have very good news. The more you practice, the easier it gets. In the beginning, it's difficult just to break the hold of the mind, but you will come to a point where the grip is not that firm, where the grip of the mind starts to ease, because you watch your mind and you start to notice, I can watch my mind. There is some space. There is quiet between the thoughts. It's not all this propagandistic, egoic mind that just goes and goes and goes. There is space here. And even if there are moments where you feel overwhelmed by thoughts and emotions, you still have a sense there is space behind all of this. I have seen it. And from that point, it's difficult for the mind to get its grip back on you. The belief in the mind is shaken. And also with the trust in the intuitive sense, it will feel very easy to decide things about your spiritual endeavors. it will start to long for things. It starts to long for, oh, I just wonder what will happen if I'm by myself and quiet for a long time. All these kind of longings can come. And they can be expressed in many different ways. And also the components that maybe invoke trust or gratitude will be more prevalent in your experience. They will come more to the forefront. And sometimes it can result in in a physical action in the relative world. You have to tell someone that you're sorry, or you have to do a little ritual for something that you have to let go. Whatever it is. There's so much beauty in the present. It's so simple to overlook. Is there any questions today? Ola has a question. Take the mic.
It's a very simple one. I just felt like saying that, like usually when we sit down with our closed eyes, then you say, open your eyes, and but it's fine for us to sit with, continue to sit with closed eyes if we prefer.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, but maybe some people are like used to like just go along with what's told to them.
Yes. Yes. If you feel to sit with closed eyes, that's always fine. And but if you think that that is a prerequisite that you need to be in meditation, then it's good to sometimes do. Sometimes I ring the bell and I say, now you have open eyes, but there is no difference. You remember? Yes. And I say that because you can be aware even with open eyes. But in moments, it can just be nice to close your eyes and to be present and just sense what is internally. You don't have such a strong feeling of being so external. It's always fine. And it brings up a good point. And it's also that you think of the guided meditation in the beginning, and sometimes we do a mantra meditation here, and but that is the sadhana. But the sadhana does not stop. It doesn't have to stop because you leave this room even. You can walk to your apartment. Now it's not very far for you, but but with the same awareness. And when you do these normal things, it's very good to just come back to it. Sometimes you might daydream or whatever, but there will come points where you, especially if you start to practice regularly, that you will be reminded. It will just come to you, awareness. And you will break the cycle of just being lost in your thoughts again. Someone else? Okay, Ola. Which one do you want? Sitaram, Jai Jai Ram. 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 Sitaram, Jai Jai Ram, 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 Sitaram, Jai Jai Ram. Thank you, thank you, thank you.